Good afternoon, everyone, to this session of the Political Science Distinguished Speakers series. And we're very fortunate to have with us Marina Silva, former Minister of Environment for Brazil, who will be speaking with us. My name is Richard Locke. I'm a professor here at MIT in political science and Sloan School of Management, and currently serve as the head of the Department of Political Science. This event, like the previous talk that some of you may have attended on Tuesday, is co-sponsored by the MIT Brazil program. The MIT Brazil program is an innovative collaborative program that tries to foster exchanges between MIT, both students and researchers, and a variety of different institutions in Brazil. It's only started a few years ago, but it's already flourishing into a very important program here on campus. When we talk a little bit about this particular topic, so we have Marina Silva speaking to us. The title of the talk is "It's Time to Lead by Example," and she'll be speaking to us about issues of sustainable economic development. And why would the MIT Political Science Department be involved in promoting a lecture around this? And I just want to remind everyone that when people think about MIT, they often think about engineering and science and technical things, which is all true. But MIT, for those of you who are maybe not here all the time, is also a mission-driven organization. And the mission of MIT is to do research and teaching to address the world's great challenges. That's what we're about. That's why people come here to study, to work, and to do their daily activities. And I can think of no greater challenge than the challenge of sustainable economic development. And I can think of no better person to speak with us about how to wrestle with these issues than Marina Silva. I won't spend a long time introducing Marina. I think many people know that she is the former Minister of Environment of Brazil. She's a former senator from the state of Acre in Brazil, a long-term activist on environmental and economic development, social justice issues in Brazil, and someone whose own life story, who was a sort of rubber tree sort of worker who was basically illiterate until she was 16, developed herself to not only become a teacher, a political activist, a senator, and a minister, but really someone who has become world known as a proponent for a more sustainable world. And sustainable meaning not just environmentally friendly, but also a world that involves citizenship, a world that involves social equality, that's inclusive, etc. And I really have learned so much from Marina's visit here at MIT this month, and I very much hope it's the first of many, many visits here to MIT and to the Boston, Cambridge area. Before I turn over the podium to Marina, I have one announcement, which is that we had actually hired a translator to do simultaneous translation, and we just learned that the translator's car has a flat tire, so he has not yet arrived. However, we're fortunate to have with us Salo Kozlowski, who is a former student here at MIT, now a professor at NYU, who will be working, Marina will speak in Portuguese. I think many people will understand that, but for those people who don't speak Portuguese, and then Salo will translate in English, and rather than being simultaneous, it will have to be sequential, and we'll make do until and if our translator arrives. And so with that, please join me in welcoming Marina Silva.
Boa tarde a todos. Em primeiro lugar, eu quero agradecer a Deus por estarmos aqui e agradecer de um modo especial ao professor Richard, juntamente com toda a sua equipe, pelo convite que me fez para poder ficar esse mês de profícua troca aqui no MIT e agradecer a presença de todos vocês, agradecer ao Salo, meu amigo, que está com a função de fazer a tradução. Há um ano atrás eu estive aqui e foi muito interessante, naquela semana do Brasil no Meet, poder também compartilhar com vocês através de uma palestra.
I want to give thanks to God for being here. Thanks to Richard and his team. It has been a very enriching month of activities, and it started out a visit some months ago during the launch of the MIT Brazil program when I first came, and then it turned out into this month-long visit, and I'm very thankful for it.
O tema que eu propus para esse nosso encontro foi a partir da ideia do que eu acho que é um dos nossos grandes desafios, que é o de fazer as transformações que, enfim, o nosso planeta precisa. E o tema que eu escolhi foi a partir da ideia de liderar pelo exemplo.
The theme that I suggested for this talk is the idea of how to tackle this big challenge of our times and how to lead by example.
A exemplo do que eu fiz no outro encontro que tivemos aqui há 2 dias atrás, eu sempre gosto de iniciar explicando para as pessoas, não é, o lugar da onde falo. Eu sei que eu estou numa universidade muito conceituada e que tem pessoas que têm a tradição acadêmica da produção do conhecimento sistematizado, mas eu falo do lugar de quem tem uma experiência vivencial, e essa experiência vivencial é que vai aqui ser compartilhada.
I like to start by situating myself, both where I am now at the university with lots of high-level researchers and research, and also where I come from, which is someone who speaks from a life experience.
Uma outra coisa que também gosto de fazer é situar um pouco, na minha percepção, o contexto, não é, em que estamos fazendo essa discussão sobre desenvolvimento sustentável, sobre desafios de transformações econômicas, sociais, culturais, enfim. E, obviamente, que não só para mim, mas para todas as pessoas que estão acompanhando o que está acontecendo no mundo, estamos vivendo um momento de profunda crise e o contexto em que estamos fazendo essa discussão é o contexto de uma crise muito profunda.
And in addition to discussing where we are and where I come from, I'd like to start by putting us in context, and the context of very deep crisis.
Para mim, é uma crise profunda que se caracteriza por múltiplas crises.
This crisis has many dimensions.
Essa crise constituída de múltiplas crises tem na base da sua constituição graves problemas econômicos, sociais, ambientais, políticos e, sobretudo, de valores.
And so among these multiple dimensions, at the root of this big crisis that we live, we see an economic crisis and also social, environmental, political, and really at its bottom, a crisis of values.
Diferentemente do outro encontro que tivemos, onde eu fui mais, enfim, demorei um pouco falando sobre cada uma dessas questões, eu apenas escolhi aqui algumas ideias que, no meu entendimento, faz uma espécie de síntese do que significam essa crise expressa na economia, nos desempenhos e nos problemas sociais, ambientais, políticos e de valores a que me referi.
So in contrast to my other talk, in which I went deeply into each one of these crises and what they meant, today I'm going to give a brief summary of each of them and how they add up to the big crisis that we live today.
Do ponto de vista da crise econômica, todos sabem o que está acontecendo no mundo, mas em 2008 nós tivemos um colapso do sistema financeiro que nos levou a prejuízo de cerca de 32 trilhões de dólares na Bolsa de Valores e a perda de milhões de empregos. Isso só para citar um exemplo. E a ideia que, para mim, resume essa crise na economia tem a ver com sacrificar os recursos, sejam eles naturais ou aqueles criados pelos humanos, não é? Ao longo de milhares e milhares de anos, pelo lucro de apenas algumas décadas. Você sacrifica recursos de milhares e milhares de anos pelo lucro de apenas algumas décadas.
The economic crisis needs little elaboration. It's something that we all been living through and has generated $32 billion in losses in the stock exchanges and hundreds of thousands of job losses. But in another way of looking into it is how the crisis is the culmination of a period in which resources accumulated for thousands and thousands of years are being wasted over a few decades, just on the basis of profit.
No caso da crise social, para mim o que materializa essa crise são os cerca de mais de 2 bilhões de seres humanos que vivem abaixo da linha da pobreza.
On the social crisis, it's symbolized by the more than 2 billion people who live with less than $1 a day.
Essas pessoas são as que têm menos acesso às oportunidades, são as mais vulneráveis aos problemas ambientais, enfim.
These are the people with least opportunity and the most vulnerable.
Não têm acesso à saúde, à educação, a transporte de qualidade. E, com certeza, a maior parte desses problemas não são problemas técnicos, são problemas éticos.
These are the people that have limited access to health, education, transportation, and it's not for lack of resources, of technology. It's not a shortage in technology, it's a shortage in ethics.
Só para se ter uma ideia, se nós formos pensar de Piaget a Vygotsky, nós de Vygotsky a Paulo Freire, nós temos conhecimento para educar toda a população do planeta.
If you think in terms of education, if you go from Piaget to Vygotsky, and from Vygotsky to Paulo Freire, we have enough knowledge and resources to educate everybody in the planet.
No entanto, só no meu país ainda temos cerca de 10 milhões de jovens analfabetos.
But then, in Brazil alone, we have more than 10 million illiterate people.
E isso que me faz dizer
And
que
this is what makes me think that it's not a problem, a technical problem, it's an ethical problem. We advanced a lot in terms of techniques, but we are still in the prehistory of ethics. Well,
mas como eu estava dizendo,
as I was stating,
esses graves problemas
these serious social problems are not only technical problems, are ethical problems. We advanced a lot in terms of techniques, but we are still in the prehistory regarding ethics. And this is the great synthesis of these serious social problems that humanity is going through right now. When we talk about the environment, we know that there is a loss of biodiversity, contamination of water and air. And I like to say that the most serious problem, environmental problems that we live is the climate changes. And then if you stop to think that if the temperature of the Earth rise up 2 more degrees can compromise the future of life in the planet. It's the environmental Armageddon. It's so dramatic, so hard to think about, to think through, that go to what the psychoanalysts, they think that is the unthinkable. And how can we with something is unthinkable, we paralyzed, and it seems that the problem is not with us. And a good part of people, they haven't yet assimilated for this rupture that we call the social ties, that this life protection. We know that the only permanent thing that we have here is death. Death is permanent, but life is only life because you can succeed. It's because there are conditions that protect, that support the successibility of life. Leonardo Boff says that ethics is everything that sustains and promotes life on earth. If we don't take care to decrease the emissions of CO2 and the temperature of the planet still keep rising, according to the scientists, we can compromise the conditions that sustain and promote life on Earth. This is a radical rupture with ethics, with the social ties, with the chain of life. Politically speaking, I say that there is a shrinkage of the traditional models in the way that you mediate the interests, the conflicts. It's not wrong to have interests. We all have interests. In this room, each one has its own interests. The problem is that when someone thinks that your own interests can go over the interests of the other. And as they go by, it seems that political systems, they collapse. And they are transformed in projects for power to power, money by money. And they are not able to move through, to circulate a new world, a lively world, free, productive, creative, to the huge transformations that the world needs, that the community needs, that we need in our lives. This, for me, is the synthesis of the political crisis. And when we talk about the crisis in values, this crisis is characterized by a sort of circumstantial ethics, harming the ethics of values. I don't have a view of a ethics, a theist ethic that is not able to move through the culture. The ethics goes through the culture, but there are some values that are permanent, stable in all cultures. The justice, sense, freedom, respect, love, truth, that you can find in all peoples and cultures according to the scholars on these areas, the social area, from different moments of history. The values crisis is the most serious, is the one that is the foundation of everything on the environmental, political, social crisis. I don't think that I'm being here giving like a moral critic. I'm not complaining that we are getting worse than we should be better. What I'm trying to say here is that someone already said, virtuous people, they create virtuous institutions, and virtuous institutions, they correct people when they fail in their virtues. It's a process of feedback where we don't depend upon only on the institutions and not only the virtue of people. We have to lead by example. We need to know that it's necessary, the institutions that are able to correct people when they fail in their virtues. Because I can be correct now, but I can make a mistake tomorrow. If I make a mistake tomorrow, I want to be corrected by a system of values, by a group of institutions that will make this interdiction in the legit, democratic, fair, and free way that I can stop harming myself, the other people, and other ways of living. For me, this has to do with the ethics of values, a ethics that transforms, but it is able, when you take in account long-standing values, they can make alliances, positive alliances. What does it mean? Usually, I come from this tradition that in a traditional way of thinking on the left wing, and I consider myself a left wing, we thought that in order to do something together, we had to think the same way. Everyone has to be together equally. I don't know whether there is a translation for it, but it's like a potato bag. Everyone is the same in that potato bag. And every time, the reality, the complexity of the problems show us that the better way for us to unite is through differences. But differences that are able to dialogue from common values. We are in favor of the truth, the freedom, democracy, respect, diversity. So these bring us together, these values. But there are a few things that we are going to be together. In Brazil, there is a young man that he defends the marijuana liberalization. And during the campaign, I asked for a referendum because there is another evaluation to resolve the problems of drugs and violence, that it's not through this way. I respect, and a lot of people, they defend it, as President Fernando Henrique Cardoso defends it, but I don't agree. But this young man, he goes in basically every event that I go, and he said something very nice to me. Marina, I know that I will never, perhaps, never is a very strong word to say, but maybe I will never go in your church ritual with you. Maybe you'll never go on a maconha parade with me, a pot parade, but we are together because you radically defend my freedom to defend pot, and I radically defend your freedom, to go to the church, to the God that you believe. Every time we are going to unite ourselves through the difference, not for the same thing, for the vulgar equally, because there are no exchange where everything is the same. If we've become the same thing, we are going to turn into a erosion cultural process in the same way that the variety of plants, they have a genetic erosion when the germoplasm are not renovated. It's the case of the Evia brasilensis in Malaysia. The crisis of values make that this ethics of circumstances separate economy from ecology, political ethic, discourse, the regular discourse, the verb and act. The Bible says that at the beginning was the verb, and Freud says in the principle, the beginning was the act. And primitively killed the tyrant and created a God. And it says that at the beginning was the act. But I think that every time the verb and act are together, there are no way to separate them, and vice versa. There is no way to separate the practice from theory. You have to believe, create. You cannot separate believe and create. We cannot only believe. We cannot keep believing dogmatically in the science. Nevertheless, in religion, even less in anything that, whatever is there. The naive belief is not to bring anywhere. I don't like this thing of the positivism and negativism. I joke that I'm not even optimist or pessimist. I'm persistent.
E ser persistente,
And be persistent.
no Brasil é
In
chamado
Brazil,
de teimosia.
you call that stubbornness.
Então,
So
os que são mais preconceituosos, às vezes,
people who
dizem,
discriminate more, but what kind of stubborn, black woman?
e isso eu chamo de
And I call it be persistent, persistency.
acreditar.
To
Não pode ser
believe
separado do
cannot
ato de
be
criar.
separated from the
É
creativity.
preciso
We need
criar aquilo
to
que a gente
create what we believe
no
on.
mundo dos humanos.
In the human world, we have to create what we believe.
No mundo do divino, do
On the
sagrado,
divine and the sacred world,
o eu sou é autossuficiente.
be me, it's autosufficient.
Aqui não.
Not here.
Trinitário.
Here you need the three things to prevail: me,
Isso pressupõe
me, two, and
fundo
him.
de criação.
This is a profound creation on what we believe. So to create a new development model, an institution like this, when someone believed back then, believed and created.
Diante da complexidade,
Before the complexity, the crisis that we are on,
tem analista da obra
there
do Duchamp,
is a Duchamp analysis that says that Duchamp has the merit
da
to
gesticulação para
get out of the gesticulation to
a gente tá
gesture.
mal acostumado
We are
a gesticular.
we like to use the body language a lot. We go to, we seem like a fan,
Mas
but
é preciso transitar da
we need
gesticulação
to go from the gesture that makes the thinking obtuse, that this, so we have to create
clean, limpo,
with the clean gesture,
gesto comprometido.
the one that compromise with the truth that is never absolute. It's our partial. This is a way to think, a new way of leadership, of politics.
Geralmente,
Usually,
as pessoas perguntam assim,
people
mas como é que a
ask,
gente vai
how
saber se tá no caminho certo, do
are we
jeito
going to do,
certo,
whether we are on the
ou a gente
right
tá no
path
caminho
to the
errado?
sustainable development or on the wrong
Talvez a
path
gente
to
não
it?
tenha como
Maybe
saber
there
gente
is
não
no way
descobrir
to learn if
a gente
we
tá no
don't
caminho.
find out first we are on the path.
Argentino,
I have an Argentinian friend that he talks about
psicanalista.
a lot about this, George. He's a psychanalyst. He says that his patients ask him, how do I know if I'm, first you need to see whether you're walking on the path, because sometimes you are stopped and you think that you're walking.
E a única forma
The
de
only
saber
way to learn it
se o caminho
is
é
if
certo
we
ou
are
não,
walking.
é o
If the
processo
path is
histórico.
wrong or not is the historic process that is going to tell us. But there is an important thing. We can know if we are walking, and how do we know it? Through the traces that are being left along the way, the impressions that we leave along the way. And what are the impressions that we are leaving along our civilized way in politics, economy, spirituality, arts, and science? There are a lot of footprints, wonderful footprints. We cannot be nihilists to the point to negate everything and all. But we cannot also, in name of the right things, we accept the mistakes. Complacency is the worst way of political leadership, and we politics, it's very, very easy to us to be complacent with our mistakes, and our accessors even more. If when you drop the ball, my
bastante rigorosa.
supporters are very restricted, but usually you live in a reality that is reported, and to make things right, you accept wrong things. This is the worst way to do political leadership.
Desafio
A challenge like this,
com a altura, com a
with this
profundidade
level,
do dilema que a gente está vivendo,
deepness of the dilemma that we are living,
a gente vai precisar
we will need maybe to do something that I call
atualizar
up-to-date,
para os dias de hoje
bring to our days what is the best way of leadership, so we can mediate the different interests
dentro do processo político.
within this political process.
Isso, com certeza,
This
vai
for
exigir
sure
nós
is
qualificar
going
que
to
tipo de
demand
exemplo
for
nós
us what kind of example we want to give
como pessoas,
as person,
como cidadãos,
as
de uma comunidade,
citizens
de um
of a
país,
community,
do
of a
planeta,
country,
enfim.
of the planet, what kind of example we want to be.
O exemplo da ética de circunstância ou
The
exemplo
example
da
of
ética
the
com
ethics
certeza.
of values or circumstances, of sure, for sure, the ethics of values.
E diante do imperativo ético de
And
mudar o modelo de desenvolvimento,
facing this, that we need to change the development model, that we sacrifice the resources from millions of years
esse modelo que nos trouxe
for
até
the
aqui,
profits of only a few decades, this model that brought us here with this positive and negative footprint, so we can look the path. If we cannot look the change the path, we have to find a new way to walk on it, as it says Tiago de Mello, the best poet from Amazonia. What should be the leader's function, the political scientist,
acadêmico,
the
renomado,
well-known scholar, the
cidadão, do ativista,
entrepreneur, the citizen, the activist, from each one of us?
eu tenho dito que
I've been saying that it's arising in the world a new way of activism.
e eu brinco com
And I
a
joke
ideia
with the idea that there is a sort of author activism. It's not the activism that comes from the party, the union, from the NGO, for the government. The internet make it possible, the authorial activism. People, they don't want to be political spectators. They want to be the subject, the protagonists.
desse ativismo
From
autoral
this type of activism,
e dessas
from
crises todas que estamos
with all
vivendo,
these crises that we are living, maybe can
liderança política.
appear a new way of political leadership,
Qual seria
which would be
esse tipo de nova
this
liderança?
kind
Eu
of
falo
new
política não
leadership.
partidária.
I'm not saying about the
Falo política no
politics
sentido
from the
amplo,
party on a
obviamente.
ample sense of the world.
Essa nova liderança, eu
This
acho que
new
vai ter que
leadership
sair
is going
do
to
conforto,
get out of the comfort
do
zone,
terreno das opções,
from the field of options or
para o
option
incômodo do terreno
for
da
the
escolha.
discomfort field of choices.
Por que que a opção é
Why
terreno confortável?
option is in a comfort zone? Because I have two things,
E eu não preciso de muito
and
esforço.
I
Olha,
don't
o que é
look,
melhor pra
I
mim,
don't
se é
need to
a
struggle a
compostar,
lot. I look what is better for me. Is it the water or the cap?
E eu opto pela água.
And I make my option for the water.
Mas a
But
escolha
the
nem
choice
sempre
not
tem
always
algo que já está pronto.
has
Na escolha,
something that is
eu
ready.
tenho que
Choice,
construir,
I have
às
to
vezes, a
build
escolha.
sometimes the choice that I
Eu digo
make.
que a opção
An
pelo
option
desenvolvimento sustentável
to the sustainable
Não
development
é
is not
uma possibilidade.
a possibility
Porque não
because
existe modelo.
there is no model.
Não existe ninguém
There
que
is
possa
no
dizer,
one
"Ei,
that we can
temos
say,
aqui um país que já
we
é
have
sustentável."
here a
Nós
country
estamos
that is
escolhendo
sustainable.
fazer
We are
algo que não
choosing
existe.
to make something that it hasn't yet existed. But we have to get out of the comfort, the option, to the choice field. It's something wonderful, awesome, that keep on moving. I'm going to read very briefly what says Alicia Fernandez, a pedagogue, what the difference in between option and choose. This is a guidance on my activism, because I am a author of advocacy. Choose is different from option. To choose is to produce new thing, is to create from that what people give to us. When we choose, we put in place the desire, the possibility, the hope to transform the world and ourselves. To choose is to make yourself different, is to create, to invent, to recognize yourself. For me, this is wonderful. To choose is to create what doesn't exist. To opt, she says, put the subject before closed options, immutable options, in order to make the transformation that the world needs. We're going to have to leave this comfort zone of option. Energy would be coal or fuel. We are creating the solutions that don't exist yet, and a good part of them we created: the sun, biomass, water, wind power, and so many other outputs, just to mention some of them. The sustainable development is not an option, it's a choice for something that doesn't exist yet. It's not simply a question to our wrong way to do things. The sustainable development is a profound question to our inappropriate way of being. If we think that change we're going to have, when we question the wrong way that we do things, maybe we are not going to be successful. But if we start to imagine that we do things in a wrong way because in a certain way we are wrong, we have a better chance to make it right, because then we are going to reframe the experiences lived along the way, the good things and the things that need to be changed. I always say that we need to meet again our civilized infancy. The new model is a way of being, an ideal of life in the present and in the future. It's a life ideal. And unfortunately, I think that in a certain way, humanity started to feel awkward regarding our civilizing infancy. What is our civilizing infancy? Let's think about Greece. They want to be wise and free. The Romans, huge and strong. And the Middle Age, they want to be saint. And they were the Dark Ages, that sins that were committed against humanity. One day we woke up on the mercantilism, and the being was kidnapped by the to-do. The artisan became and the philosopher started to make philosophy science. And if we go to Brazil in the 21st century, the loving act in between two people became to make love. And when you make, you gotta put everything in a certain place when you have like a black hole called consumption. So we make and consume. And there were people that saying that we are getting sick by the surplus and not for the lack. greatest sickness is the lack of the lack, because we have everything, surplus of things to consume, surplus of credibility, incredibility. We are being suffocated by the surplus. To leader by the example maybe is to find the way so we can be the very own message that we bring. And that's good that everything that was already written, very well written, profoundly correct. Other cases, not that much. There are a lot of things of like self-help in the politics that obviously don't work, but the world it's full of good examples. Gandhi, Luther King, Mandela, Madre Teresa de Calcutta, Wangari Maathai, Aung San Suu Kyi, the General Secretary for the Democracy from Broome, and several other people that we could mention here, people that lead by the example, that they were the message that they were preaching. But they are not good. Let's pick someone among us, something more real, close to us. We cannot be politically shy, ethically before these great people. In Brazil, we have several figures. Chico Mendes is one of them, that he was a leader by his example. He taught me a lot of things. We cannot be shy because we come from a world where the heroes are made to be admired. And they do so admirable things that they only become truth when there is the time where all of us, we have to get together to do the things that only them were doing. And the day that we are all doing, we wouldn't need a hero to be sacrificed to get to the beauty, the profundity of these people that are here. They do such relevant things that to continue on what they are doing, there is a need for all of us. And while they need to sacrifice because they are still not doing everything. So to believe, create, was the ability of these people. Who could be convinced Mandela that South Africa is what it is today? Who could be convinced Chico Mendes that one day the federal police in Brazil would put in jail 725 people when back then were able to arrest one people that was destroying this colocação de seringa? Who could be a Wangari Maathai who is not among us anymore, that it would be possible to mobilize women to cultivate, to plant trees that would bring life back to their countries, to their lives. So to be a leader by the example is to live the message that we preach. They lived the message that they preach. They are good examples. I'm going to finish here, and we're going to have the question and answer moment. I learned a little bit about it during a very hardship life in the Amazonic forest up to my adolescence. I was born and I was raised in a production unit for latex extraction. So the closest neighbor was about 2 hours walking distance in the forest. And their solidarity, love to the other, respect to nature was our biggest treasure. And my grandmother was a traditional midwife, and he would do the labors from all over the woman, no matter the distance. My father, he he know how to read, to make math, and apply shots. And Saturdays and Sundays, after a full week of work, he would do the math, so the seringueiros wouldn't be cheated by the bond system and applying shots to people who would get sick. And my mother was a great seamstress. She would do from baptism to shroud clothes, from marriage to divorce in that region. And lastly, a very important person in my life, that was my uncle, a forester, a shaman, who was created among the indigenous people from 12 to 37 years. He was a PhD in the forest geography. He knew how to do almost everything, from work to the iron, and to make a syringe knife, to produce a piece of a bowl of wood, a beautiful bows, without mentioning for his magic abilities to hide in the forest. All these people, they would dedicate all the time to be good. There was a president, a judge, no one there. They lived the message that they preached. So to be a leader by the example is, we need to be able to create a new world, everything that does not yet exist. And lastly, during the campaign, I had to face very hard situations, and the polls were going up. How are you going to govern? You don't have a base. And I would say that with the best from PT and PSDB. And people, how are you going to govern with the others' base? And I would say, like Neruda, base is not from who has it, it's from who needs it. People who are able to do their work, not to exchange favors. In all the parties, there are a lot of people like that. It's from the right or the left, not neither. I'm in the front, as someone has already said. And lately, when they ask me whether I'm in favor or left, I know I have a position. President Dilma is doing good work in the social area, continuing the President Lula government is struggling to keep the country balanced during the economic crisis. I have a favorable position on the things that she's making wrong, like the forest code. I have a contrary position, and I'm going to leave here and go to Brazil. I'm going to do everything so the Brazilian society give political support so she can veto this crime that they are doing in Brazil. Brazil has everything to be a environmental power, and they are trying to go on the other way. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, muito obrigado, Marina. We have some time for questions if people want to have a few questions, make a few statements. If you could just raise your hand and identify yourself. Yes, back there.
A senhora pode me ouvir?
How much of political leadership is compromise and how much of it is conviction?
Quanto da liderança política é comprometedora e quanto que é convicção? Você tem condições de falar sobre isso?
Eu não sei se entendi
I don't know whether I understood
corretamente a sua
correctly
sua pergunta,
your question,
mas você perguntou
but was how much of
quanto é convicção
when is conviction and
e o quanto é compromisso. É isso?
and how much is a compromise? Is that your question? A agreement.
Eu acho que
I
quando não se
think that
separa
when
a
you
ética
don't
de
separate ethics from politics,
os acordos não
the
são
agreements
desprovidos de convicção.
they cannot
Os
be
acordos
without
não são
conviction.
desprovidos de
They
valores. Portanto,
they
para
still
mim,
have values. For me, politics
ela não prescinde da negociação, da mediação.
needs the negotiation, the mediation, the interest. But this mediation, negotiation
Ela deve ser
has
permeada,
to be
plasmada pelos valores.
guided by the
Então,
values.
não cabe a equação
The equation
distante, separando
separating
a negociação dos
negotiation from values.
campanha,
During the campaign, I said, I rather lose winning than win losing. And I think that I lost winning.
jamais
But
negociaria
I would
com
never
setores que
negotiate
até
with
poderiam me
sectors
fazer
that
ganhar,
would bring me to the winning exactly because that would be
os valores
to
da
separate
negociação.
values from negotiation.
Então, para mim, as
So
coisas, elas
things for
são
me,
integradas.
they are
Não dá pra
interconnected.
fazer essa
There is no way
quantificação
so that you
separada.
can do this
Fazem parte de uma
quantification.
mesma equação, de uma
It's
mesma-
part of the same equation, the same coin, as so to speak.
Fala em português.
I'm going to speak in Portuguese.
Minha pergunta é se é possível
Is it
fazer
possible
essa
to
crítica
make
baseada
this
na
politics
ética
based
das
in the
convicções,
ethics and the convictions without going back to the circumstances ethics within the party? You also mentioned that there are institutions that in a certain way stabilize people, the people attitudes. Is it possible to do politics turned exclusively to the ethics of conviction? You belong to the Partido dos Trabalhadores. At a certain point was the ethics hero. I say that because I was affiliated for this in the Green Party. How is it? The idea now is to do politics outside of the political party, and it was very, and I liked very much the opportunity here.
Quando eu falo
When I talk about the crisis of values, I don't say it like I have a pointer.
é uma percepção
This
que é
is a
compartilhada
perception that is shared
por inúmeras pessoas.
by a lot of people, and as I said,
A dor e a delícia de
inside the
oposição, como
parties with the pain and the beauty that to be what they are, as the Caetano Veloso song, there are people who are correct,
pessoas que são éticas,
ethical,
que se orientam por
and they are guided by values. I know lots of them in all the parties. I can mention in Brazil Pedro Simono, for example.
posso citar
I can mention several examples,
que mesmo
people that within the political party,
mantêm os seus
they keep their values.
E eu acredito naquilo
And
que
I
Edgar
believe
fala,
on what Edgar Morin
na
says,
unidade de pensamento.
and the community of thoughts. I'm a partner and a lot of people inside PT, from the majority of them, because it wasn't the majority of PT that made the mistakes that we all know. I'm still a partner of a lot of people inside PSDB, but people that are able, even though their circumstances, they can keep their ethics on values. When on what I call a community of thoughts. The system is in crisis all over the world, but what I notice, no one has an easy answer for it. It's not that you can, keep shooting all over and you find the answer. We are metabolizing this crisis, finding new ways, new ways to walk. But you can to note that there is a sphere that is getting away from the center. With the young people, they are looking for other alternatives in Chile, Spain. The young people occupy street on the Arabic Spring and Edgar Morin. In the beginning, the change is only a deviate, and we need to make attention what kind of things that we need to help. We need to help to the good. We have the first Black American president in United States. It needs to keep happening because this is a quality of another view of politics. The young, that they go crazy for breaking down everything in London because the surplus says that they cannot live beyond the consumption. We cannot be in favor of it. Politics is in crisis, but there is a new process, a new dynamic. The social networks are there. Internet is favor for that. We are living a democratization of the democracy. That's what I call a prospective democracy. Millions, billions of people all over the world, they are able to prospect. I don't know if you can understand it. New apps for the democracy. Before was the political parties, the unions, the NGOs, corporations, government, academia, the opinion. With the internet today, billions of human beings are able to create new ways to democratize the democracy. This is a political experience. Thank you so much. I'm the president of the Brazilian Institute here. With this view of the future, and I think about the future. I'm old, I'm an immigrant in the planet of technology, but I'm raising two Native Americans. How we are going to work with this new generation to create possibilities for this new model of social leadership? I think that the new generations, they need what I call of utopia maintenance. I consider myself a utopia maintenance. I have good utopia. I have Chico Mendes, Lula, Florestan, Paulo Freire, Fernando Henrique. I have a huge list of people that were my utopia maintainers, and every country has its own examples. You have several examples here. We have a very famous one that is Luther King, that is the utopia, the dream. And every time you need to have people like that. The youth, what they need, from my understanding, and we need to be humble with our contribution, they need a surface of sustainability. And our role is to be this surface. I remember that during my youth, I was very, very radical. And I thought that the bishop was very, very, I don't know how to say it, but he was very moderate, conservative. And we would do things that you could ever imagine. But every time that there was a problem, and the farmers and the police would come after us, It was before the bishop cloth that we would protect ourselves. And he was the one who would keep sustain that situation. Obviously, that today he looked to us and said, oh my God, these boys, they went far away, those kids. But without them, maybe we would have reached anywhere. And I never forget, once in a meeting with a lot of priests and nuns, I was 27 years old, and our inconscient is full of traps. So there was an opportunity, and I said to, but Dom Moacir, how you is such an experienced man, and on that time sent Selma and I, she was 17 and I was 19, and same age at my age. You sent us in the middle of the armed conflict because the farmers want to expel the Seringueiros from their lands, and there was no way to bring food to them. And Selma and I, we were volunteer in that and naively we would walk by very lean, in a canoe with a tarp covering all the food to bring to the works, and the farmer works wouldn't give a damn for us. On that opportunity, how did you have the courage to send the girl so fragile, naive, to the middle of that conflict? He looked at me and said, daughter, when you don't have someone to send, you send anyone. And I learned a lesson when I was 17. Anyone can do a lot of things. And I'm here in the condition of anyone until today. And I think every one of us here can be listed and can join the army of anyone to be a Utopia maintainer, because they gonna continuing our job.
I'm sure we could continue this conversation for many, many, many hours, and but we have come to our time. Please join me in thanking our maintainer of Utopia. If we were all just anyone like her, the world would be really a different place. But certainly someone who has and is leading by example, not just in Brazil, but everywhere in the world. It's a real pleasure and honor to be able to be in the presence of such a wonderful leader. So please join me in thanking her for this wonderful talk. Thanks.